All right, guys. I wanted to shoot a quick video here with Cyndi Davidson, who works with us at LoveWell Properties. And Cyndi, welcome to, I guess, the show or the video, whatever you want to call it. I'm really excited to have you here. I also, before we kind of get into this, I thought about asking Cyndi, like, who is Cyndi Davidson? But that's, I think, a hard question to answer. And if you want to, I'll let you. But I would like to speak just on behalf of you to kind of tell other people who I think you are as a person
Okay.
and as somebody to work with. So Cyndi Davidson is somebody that I met, and I'll let you maybe share the story at some point, before this. But Cyndi is someone I met a few years ago who really struck me as somebody with a lot of energy, somebody that was like really hungry to learn real estate and get into it and ultimately be successful and like help people in the process of doing it. And that was a big thing that stuck out to me. Somebody that was God fearing, that loved the Lord, that wanted to share that with other people, and was very passionate about it. And that was something at the time of my life that I really wanted in my life. And so I was like, you know what? I don't know anything about real estate. I'm still learning it too. Cyndi's still learning it. Let's just learn it together. And she has truly been one of the most loyal people I've ever met, one of the most hardworking people that I've ever met, and she is truly the glue that keeps our team together. So, Cyndi, with that being said, super thankful for you. And maybe you can tell the story a little bit about like how we got connected in the first place. Maybe we'll start there.
Okay. I went to a meetup, and that's where I first met you. And I had been, I think, like a lot of people do, trying different programs and really trying to learn real estate. And I just wasn't getting where I wanted to go. And so when I met you, you were focused and passionate and just sort of fearless. And you said, "I'll show you." And I think that's a real key for anyone who is starting in real estate or has been in it for a couple years and maybe they're not where they want to be. Don't do it alone.
Yeah.
Find somebody you really trust and connect and work with them. And so that's how we met. And your leadership has just been. I am so thankful for it. You are
Thank you.
obviously passionate about real estate, but more important than that, you really care about people. You can't fake that. I mean, you can for a while, but then it shows, and you really, really do
Yeah.
care about people. So it's been a
Thank
it's
you.
been a really good partnership. Yeah, and you
Yeah.
too, like you mentioned. You say God first, family second. It's so true in both of our lives, and I think that's
Yeah.
really very, very important and special too.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Can you share like a little bit more of kind of like maybe like what was going on like in your life at that time, like when we first met, like what you had done in real estate so far, and like kind of like what you were struggling with at that time?
Sure. I had paid money that for me was a lot of money in a couple different programs where, and I've, since talked to so many people who've done the same thing and they have expectations and they spend five, $10,000 and then find out maybe the person isn't even actively doing real estate, yet they feel comfortable enough,
We've all done
charge.
it.
And
Yeah.
so I love that you are constantly actively doing deals and doing it. I was chasing shiny objects. I'll try this list, that list, do this, do that. Um, the squirrel thing. And I think I love with us, we've been able to get very focused and learn
Yeah.
one thing very well and be successful at it. So that's been
Yeah.
really key.
Yeah. Being focused. That's like really one of our mottos this year, is to like make sure that yes, there's so many opportunities out there that we could go tackle, and maybe one day like we will tackle all those things, but it's building one foundational block at a time, right? And I think we're really good at that. We're not just going to move on when things get hard, right? Which is ultimately
Absolutely.
I think why people have a hard time gaining traction in real estate is they don't give it enough time. They don't expect it to be as hard as what it actually is, right? So there's some of those things
Absolutely.
there. Could you
Yeah.
maybe speak to like maybe what made you say like yes to working together? Because you could have just been like, I don't know if I want to do that, or maybe I want to go work with someone else. Like, what was it about like Love Well and the vision behind Love Well that maybe drew you to working together?
Well, when we met at that meetup, I went up to you and I said something, and you're like, "I'll show you how to do it." And I'm like, "Okay." And then we got in little groups, and you got on the phone and literally showed us right then and there. You
Yeah.
started making cold calls, and I'm like, "Huh? Well, if he can do that, that's just what I'm looking for." He's doing it.
Hmm.
And we started with a small group of people, and then you were doing some Zooms, and you decided to build a team, and you only had room for a certain number of people. And I remember it's kind of fun. I thought, oh, he'll never pick me, because I'm older, whatever. And, I'll still remember getting the call, and you're like, yeah, I'd like you to be on the team. And like you said, you asked me one of my good qualities, and I said, I'm very loyal,
Yeah.
and you are too.
Strong.
And it's just been a divine appointment. It's been very good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's changed my life for the better too. So yeah, that's how you know you're working with the right people. Like when it's like you don't have to question that. Like if,
Right.
if there's a moment where you have to question and you're like, should I be working with these people? It's like you
Yeah.
shouldn't be. Like
That's
you
true.
you'll know. And also like the fact that I know, I know, without a doubt that I could hand you my bank account, I could hand you my credit card, I could if something happened to me, I know you would take care of my girlfriend or family, like you would. And everyone, and my plants, right? I got plants that they need water in, right? But like you would
Yep.
do that, and everyone else on the team would too, Griffin and Amir, and
Yes.
that's like that's priceless. That kind of
It is
trust.
priceless. And I'll tell you something else with a lot of these programs. Um, it's you find out when you have a deal, you have to wait a week till the next Zoom call to even talk to anyone to figure out how to work through it. I mean, literally for real. Even if you have a form to fill out and turn it in, and with you, it's wonderful because I can pick up the phone and we immediately talk and immediately get on it, and that's just priceless.
Yeah, we can bounce ideas off each other constantly. I mean, I call you all the time, being like, I don't know how to have this conversation with this person. Like this person's being difficult, and I think that's a good thing about working together is like we all lean on each other for advice. It's not just like a one man show or one woman show, right? Um, can you talk a little bit about obviously when we first started, it was kind of more we were going direct to agent, we were focusing on creative finance, getting subject to deals, and that was good for a little while, right? But
Hmm.
can you talk a little bit about like what your role is now with Lovewell and kind of like what day to day like looks like for you?
Sure. I think too, I'm an acquisitionist,
Yeah.
so I make the calls with the leads. And I think again, 2 or 3 years ago in real estate, I had these grand ideas which I wasn't prepared. I didn't have the foundation for. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel very, even when I said an investor, because I really wasn't, but it's like now I know this, I'm starting building a foundation,
Yeah.
step by step. So I'm an acquisitionist, and I love that we have decided to focus on a specific group. Like you
Yeah.
said, we'll certainly grow, but
Yeah.
we focus on people that really have a need. They really have a motivation. They're in foreclosure.
Yeah.
So, every day I get leads and call them, and we've learned. And again, this is where the fear of picking up the phone, everyone has to face that. I think everyone on our team is successfully moving past that part. And
Yeah.
then you need to know what to say. And we do our role playing, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I will say, I think you're one of the best communicators that I have run
Huh.
across. And I love communication. I love reading. I know you do now too. But honestly, it's priceless, because the tonality and the care and how you deliver the message when you talk to people is so important.
Mm.
And
It is.
priceless, actually, I think, for this business or anything you do in life, because things I learn every day talking on the phone with people, how to ask more questions instead of just vomit information and,
Mm-hmm.
just tell them.
Yeah.
It's much more valuable to draw it out of them by asking the correct questions. And then I
Mm-hmm.
find that spills over to my family, and
Yeah.
everything in my life, to learn to not just tell, to ask so they see
Mm-hmm.
it, so they get it. So,
That's gold. That's gold right there. For anybody that's like watching this or listening, even if it's later on, like if you can take one thing from this video, take that. People are, I think it's like 5 times more likely to essentially be persuaded, and not something that's bad for them, something that is the right thing for them to do, right? You're 5 times more persuasive when you can have someone tell themselves the
yeah,
actual situation, what's actually going on, the pain they're experiencing, what happens if they don't do anything about it, the consequences, versus you telling them what's going to happen. You have
right.
to get them to see it themselves and them to acknowledge it, right? We're all humans, and that's the way that we work, right? We don't
Yeah.
like being talked at. We like being talked with, right?
Hmm.
So that's an important piece for sure. Could you share like maybe what's like the most surprising thing to you? Like when it comes to like working with sellers, like specifically in foreclosure, like what's something you didn't expect, like when we first started doing that?
Well, how many people don't know what their mortgage amount is, where their mortgage statement is, how to find it? They are in foreclosure and they haven't thought of picking up the phone and talking to the bank themselves and finding out what's going on. So that still kind of blows my mind. I think it's uh, the fear, and they just put their head in the sand and they're paralyzed, obviously. But I think that's still surprising to me when it's such an important thing as your home, and they, like I said, some people don't even know what their interest rate is on their home. That kind of stuff.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Some people don't even
Yeah.
know when their auction is.
Yeah.
So like it's a pretty wild world. It's a completely different side of like humanity that you will never see unless you get into it.
Yeah.
Like you
I,
just won't see it.
and I think the most rewarding thing, what I found too, is when you help people and there's nothing monetary at all, but you truly help them.
Yeah.
Um, I can share a short story if
Yeah,
there's
please
time.
do. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just can't. I've always remembered this lady that she had no idea there was an auction. She'd grown up in the house with her dad. She'd taken care of her dad all her life. She'd taken care of a sibling that had some kind of health issue. And so she didn't have an outside job. She had no idea. It turns out, long story short, when her dad died recently, like within the year, she didn't know that he'd filled out something about taxes and she didn't. So that was like 6,000 in taxes due.
Yeah.
So long story short, her brother, the only working person in the family, he worked at a restaurant ever since he was like 16 years old. When he told his boss, she said, "You've been so faithful, I'll take care of it for you." So
Wow.
she got to save her house, stay in the house. And it's
Unreal.
just, some of those stories are the best when you help
Yeah.
people and you don't even, you know,
Totally. Totally. Yeah, and I think that's what makes us different, and not to, every company says, "Oh, this makes us different, that makes us different." But like for us, that's at least what we're striving for, right? Is to not just be another
yeah,
investor that's here trying to just take your house to lowball you to give you some kind of cash offer and get out. That's not how we operate, right? We want to give people options. We want to clearly educate them on like what their realistic options are, because there's a lot of
yeah,
people that are delusional about what's actually possible. And
yeah,
then if those options work for them, even if it doesn't fit us monetarily or doesn't like give us any kind of reward, we still get that emotional income that we talk about, right? And so like
yeah,
that's a big piece for us. So I love you sharing that story. I think that's big. What
yeah.
about as far as like a win? What about like financially? Like what is the biggest win or maybe your favorite deal that we've done so far
Probably
that
the
you can think of?
maybe the first one with you where met you at the coffee shop and got my $15,000 check. It was like,
fifteen
okay,
thousand dollar check. Yeah, that was that
that was
was
a
that
big
was not
win.
a bad deal. Yeah, that was.
No,
Could you share a little bit more about that deal, like the story behind it, and like maybe like the
no, unless you
situation?
remember. Honestly, I can't because it's been about a year and a half now. But
Yeah, it was
yeah,
a deal that the sellers had it on market. Actually, they were trying to sell the property for I think it was like 2 years, something crazy like that. They hadn't been able to sell it. They were very underwater on the property, right? So there was like no equity minus some, right? Like considerably. Like they were getting traditional offers and they were gonna have to cut a check for like $70,000, something crazy like that. And so we offered to take the property subject to. We offered to actually help them find a buyer because it wasn't a good fit for us. And at first, we were just trying to help them not cut a check at closing, but we just couldn't get it sold, right? And so
yes.
finally,
Is this the one where they did end up with a check at closing, but they wanted to do it?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they called us and they were like, hey, like how much money would we have to bring to the table?
And I
You know?
remember there's your mindset, my mindset. Like nobody would ever want to do that, you know?
Yes, right. No
But
one would ever sell to me subject to. No one would ever cut a check at the closing table. Nonetheless, no one would ever bring $52,000 to the closing table,
absolutely.
which they did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
why did they do that? Well, because they were going to have to cut a check for 70 maybe to get it sold.
Yeah.
Us was certain. And I
Yep.
didn't say 50. They actually started off at higher. They're like, what if we brought 65 or something like that? And I was like, I don't think we would need to bring that much. Because
Hmm.
we're not trying to get over one on people. But we
No.
also have to make the deal work for us so we can make some money.
And it just shows
Right.
you your mindset. You have to stop that and just be open to the possibility. And I remember I got a
Yeah.
prompting. Maybe they would, and you did at the same time, and
You're the one that
they
told
did.
me that.
I know. I was like,
Yeah, you were
I
like,
know.
would they bring more? And I'm like, I don't think so. And there's me like having a limiting belief, and that's why it's important to have a team. Because
Yeah.
I probably would have never asked. And
Yeah.
you're like, maybe you should just ask. And me, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, of course. Like, well, that sounds easy. Like, she just wants me to ask, you know? And so I go ask, and they're like, what if we brought 60? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stupid. Cindy's a genius. Thank you, Cindy. So that's a great win. I'm glad we shared that story.
I have one other one that came to mind, and it's
Yeah.
Lisa. Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
how. I don't know how, but she had not been contacted by anyone else. And I'll tell you
Mm-hmm.
another limiting belief you have that I had to get over as an acquisitionist is
Mm-hmm.
it's saturated. And they are getting bombarded with calls for everybody. So why even try?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like I really had to think, wait a minute, if I wanted to open a Chinese restaurant, and that was my passion because I love Chinese
Mm-hmm.
food, I
Yeah.
wouldn't sit there and go, well, there's already 5 in town. Why even try? You know what I
Right.
mean? So you have to
Yeah.
get rid of those limiting beliefs. But anyway, so here she is. Doesn't happen often, but somehow she had not talked to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, we're sitting in her living room, and we were had agreed. She'd agreed she wanted to sell, and we would give her $10,000. And Evan sits there and goes, I really want to give you 20. And she just burst into tears. I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
just a
That was a
beautiful
sweet
moment.
moment. Yeah, that was makes me emotional thinking about it. That was like
I know.
that was a definitely a highlight of 2025 to be able to
Yeah.
work with her, you know. And she was just so grateful and so thankful and so just positive, regardless of her situation. It
Hmm.
really it made me like go home and internally like look at myself and be like, man, why am I complaining? You know,
I
here
know.
she is getting up every day.
And then one other one that comes to mind, I think is one of our first ones in McMinnville, where the
Yeah.
lady's husband was in jail, and she had the strength, which so many women don't when they're in an abusive relationship. And you could tell she still cared for him,
Yeah.
but she was literally picked up her children and moved to a friend many states away,
Mm-hmm.
and we made that possible by being able to buy her house. And
Yeah.
it was really cool because she'd just become a new believer, and I was able to give her a
Yeah.
Bible that was easy to understand. But
Mm-hmm.
and encourage her that so many people don't do that. Good for you. you know
Yeah. Yeah.
so those
Yeah.
are the things. That's why I like it. I think it's very good if you. I really do love connecting with people, and you do too. And
Mm-hmm.
situations like that where you truly help them out, and their life has changed. Lisa's was, this lady's was.
Yeah, even sitting at the kitchen table and praying with families that we've,
Yes.
it's like things like that. Just you don't get to do that at a normal 9 to 5 job most of the time.
And
It's like
sometimes
you,
when and sometimes when I'm calling, it hasn't happened recently, but many times people will tell me, because you'll hear a lot of stories about people's lives and things that have happened. And there are times when I've said, would it be okay if I prayed with you about that? That just sounds
I
like
love
that's
that.
just so stressful. And I've never had someone say no,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
beautiful. Yeah, and I think a lot of people like that are gonna watch this video are gonna kind of think like, well, like that's nice, like that they can do all that stuff, and that's nice that they can, get all these deals, and it's like so easy for them, right? But like, I guess like, how in the beginning when you were getting started, like how did you work through like that imposter syndrome, like that most people experience, right? Where they're like, oh, I'm not worthy of this, right? Like I'm not a real estate investor, I could never do this. Like, do you have any tips on that? Like, how did you actually get through that yourself?
I think struggle with it a little, but far, far less,
I do too. Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the key is for the job that I do, picking up the phone, it can be a grind. So you have to find a way to just do it. Do it. And it's just like exercise. It's a grind. You don't want to do it, but you get up and
Yeah.
you do it. And then you meet these people because you did it. And that gives you
Mm-hmm.
the strength and the courage and the encouragement to go on and keep
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah,
It's
I think
good.
that's pretty much. And again, I can't stress enough to not do it on your own. Join a
Mm-hmm.
group, join somebody, find someone to connect with so that you can be supported. And know you're not
Yeah.
alone. No, you're not the only one that struggles with feeling like an imposter, or that it's hard to pick up that phone. Even though our team is really getting very good at it. Like Griffin shared another team member yesterday,
Yeah.
and he's really good. I
Yeah.
mean,
He is
really. And
very
he
good.
was just kind of struggling with feeling like he wasn't in the zone, and we were able
Yeah.
to give ideas and get him back
Mm-hmm.
there. And again, be honest about it. Don't act like
Yeah.
everything's just fine. And you're really
Totally.
good as a leader just to encourage us consistently. to be honest about what we're going through, what we're feeling.
Yes. Yes.
Very important.
Yes. You have to be honest with. That's what I love about our team. Like, we're fully honest about where we are, like how we're feeling, what we're struggling with. We're also just honest to sellers. We're honest to buyers. We're honest to each other. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't share this with you, but I think this is a beautiful thing. I was talking to Griffin yesterday. We're talking about a commission that he's going to make on a deal. It's a pretty big commission, and I said, hey, this is what I think you're making based off of the percentage, and it was a big number. And he told me, he said, I got to be honest with you, that's more than what you're supposed to pay me by like $2,000-$3,000, and I told him I appreciate the honesty so much. I want to keep the number the same regardless. And I think that's cool that that's how we operate as a team. Like, that's very rare to find that.
I think
You
so.
know,
And I'll tell you
we're
one thing I
very,
like
yeah.
about you as a leader, I've noticed you're always wanting to be a better leader, and you you as a leader, you listen to other people that are, you have a great network of people who are further along that will talk to you and guide and mentor you, but
Yeah.
you always take anyone's advice. I don't care if they're Pace Morby or whatever, and they're multimillionaires, and you'll go, okay, I hear what they're saying, maybe in regard to what you should be paying your acquisitionist, and you'll be
Yep.
like, well, okay, I hear that, but this is what I feel is right to do. And I know the time you
Yes.
called me and said, I'm going to pay you a couple thousand extra because you did XYZ. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
That's
y'all work extremely hard, and it's a mentally challenging task to try to get a hold of some of these people, to keep following up, to stick through the grind. And so I want it to be worth it, and not just with pay, but also like the fulfillment side, and also being able to be a part of a team. Like, that stuff, you can't put a price tag on a lot of that. Has there, I guess, like, one question I would have for you is, like, after like hundreds of conversations, probably thousands at this point, like, what patterns do you see over and over with homeowners that are in foreclosure? What are some common patterns that you see?
well, the denial, the magical thinking.
Hmm.
And
Can
I
you give me
think,
an example of that? Like something that you've heard recently?
um, they're 2 days before the auction. They can't reinstate. They can't, they've already filed bankruptcy. There's no one in the family that's going to give them the money to reinstate. The loan modification was turned down because they're not working, and yet they're not willing to look at the fact that if they did sell the property, they would get some cash, they'd get some time, they could get it not on their credit report. They just don't want to face the reality of it. And unfortunately, we've had a couple times where they lose their home, and it's
Yeah.
very sad.
It
And
is
I
sad.
just call that magical thinking. And I think the best thing I'm learning, which isn't easy for I think a lot of people, that you are instilling in us, is we have to learn to ask those hard questions kindly, or draw it out of them kindly with empathy, but not avoid the hard questions. The
Yes.
hard, so they realize you could end up with on the street, like we could help you have a better, the bank could take everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
so wouldn't it be better if, or wouldn't how about considering this? But I mean,
Yeah.
just being, and it's a skill to learn, to be able to help
Yes.
people face the reality.
It is a skill. And honestly, to not get too much into this, to some degree, it feels very similar to an addiction of some sort. Like, it's almost like you're talking to, and I don't mean this in a bad way. Like, we love the people that we work with, but in a way, some of these people are addicted to denial, magical thinking, to having the stress in their life. Ironically, like, it's almost like they wouldn't know what to do if it wasn't there, because it's
Yeah,
been there for the last 5 years.
yeah,
Just because they're not in foreclosure doesn't mean they haven't had the same things going on that have led them to this point. Because for someone to go from current on payments, was able to get a mortgage, so
yeah,
was financeable from a
yeah,
bank, to now missing their first payment, to now missing payments for 6 months, 1 year, a year and a half, 2 years, which we've seen,
yeah,
to now being in foreclosure and still not doing anything about it, now waiting a week before foreclosure. There's a different mindset there that a lot of us could never understand unless we
correct.
were actually there
Yeah,
and we actually lived their life that has led them to the point where they feel like that's how they live. So we're
yeah,
having to change not only how they see the situation. We're essentially trying to help them change their behavior, their learning patterns. This is what they've learned to do,
Yep.
right? And so it's like hoping, helping those people to be able to move on to their next step, not just financially, but also say, hey, like, we want to give you some hope here. Like, hey, your
Mhm.
life can be different from this point on. This identity that you have, that I'm the person that's bad with money, I'm the person that gets behind on my bills, that doesn't have to be you anymore. That's your
Correct.
choice. And so, like, do you feel like is there something that you feel like when people are, because they ask all the time, like, well, what is it like talking to people in foreclosure? Like, how do you find these leads? What are the scripts? It's like, what do you feel like people misunderstand the most about the foreclosure process, or like people in foreclosure? Like, is there something that you feel like people misunderstand about that you've learned throughout doing this for the last 2 years?
I don't know if people misunderstand it unless you're in it, but I
Mm-hmm.
think everybody thinks there's shame attached to it. I know I
Yeah.
did. I would think, and so then you find out when you talk to homeowners that yes, they do feel like, some of them, some understand and have a better mindset. Hey, I went through a hardship. And then some of them, they just feel the shame of it, like they're a failure. And I've been able to say, your children, one guy I'm thinking of in particular, your children are watching you. And life is full of difficulties for all of us and challenges. So how you handle this by
Mm-hmm.
handling it, you know, teaches them that, yeah, there can be a problem, but my dad fixed it. He worked through it. He handled it and we're okay. And we're in a
Yeah.
better spot. And we got through it. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree with you. And I think people also think that a lot of this is logical. I think people on the outside will be like, "Oh, well, that'll be an easy deal to get them to sell because they're a week away from their foreclosure. They don't have any other options."
Yeah.
I think that's a misconception that people
Oh,
have.
it is.
And it's you realize none of this is logical.
Right.
Waiting 2 years to figure something out is not logical. That's emotional,
Yeah.
right? And that's a pattern that they've learned. And so for you to think that their situation equals more motivation automatically is a big mistake.
Yeah. Like
Big
Mindy we're
mistake.
dealing with right now. And
Yep.
in talking to her, found out she'd been in jail and she got out. You'd look it up the house and you might think she lived in a little shack or something. I mean, it's terrible.
Right.
There's,
Yeah.
but she lives in a pretty nice home, four hundred
Very
thousand dollar
nice.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is in total denial
Yeah.
about. She's worked with us to a point, and then she'll ghost and she'll drop off the face of the earth right before the day before the auction. She got to us
Yep.
yesterday,
Yeah.
but so
Yeah.
yeah. But when you sit back though and you talk to enough people, it is kind of, and I mean this in the nicest way on our perspective, it's kind of fun because you hear great stories, you meet great people, then you
You
find out
do.
these. You just have to laugh at some of it at some point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean, of
You'll
course,
go
you find,
crazy doing this on your own. That's why you
yeah,
have to have a team. You'll go insane. There's too
yeah,
many things, and there's too many, like, it would make you think I'm not doing anything right
hmm,
because there's just so many factors that you can't control. And it's like sometimes a deal just goes south and you did everything that you could. And
yeah.
that's hard to accept that. It's very difficult. And I don't know, like, what are some, like, maybe some ways that you can navigate the conversation around foreclosure with these homeowners so you don't just come across like another investor that's been calling them, right? They have maybe hundreds of investors that have called them. So it's like, how do you navigate that conversation, like, very, like, briefly, like, as far as
I
sounding
think
different?
probably 90% of investors truly do just want to buy their house.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, the stories we've already shared where I helped someone and we didn't get any income from it. So I think you have to have your mindset in your heart, like to truly walk them through what have you tried so far? I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I suggest, do you have a 401k? Oh no, I hadn't thought
Mm-hmm.
about that. Or yeah, like really genuinely try to help them stay
Right.
in their home. That is your real objective.
Mm-hmm.
And if it really works out they can't, well then we can explain to them how it would look if they sold
Yeah.
their property. And then you have to get rid of some ideas too. Like sometimes I put myself in their shoes too much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, where would they rent? Where would they go? Rents are higher, But if the bank came and took their home and they were on the street or living on their parents' or friend's couch, they have to figure it out anyway. And we're very good at offering to help them find their next place, that kind of a thing. So I think that's what sets us apart. We aren't really just going in to give them a lowball offer to buy their home. We
Yeah.
really do want to go through the options to make sure they've done everything they can to keep their home. I
Yeah.
think that sets us apart.
Yeah, and I think that's a gold nugget too. What you just said, that just spoke to me because I do the same thing. Where I can put myself in their shoes a little too much. Like we call that like not buying into their story, the story that
Mm-hmm.
they tell themselves about what their life is and what it has to be forever and ever. It's like if you saw someone on the street that was homeless, that was, you know, shooting heroin up or whatever. It's like you may, if you really sat with them for a long time and they told you everything about their life and they
Yeah.
told you like why they're there and they told you all their objections of like why they can't find good housing or can't find a job, you might start to believe them.
Yep.
And that's the crazy part is like objectively you can say like no, like you should go out and you should try to clean yourself up, but well how am I going to do that? Oh, yeah, that's true. But it's like realistically like all of these things you can figure it out as you go. And you
Mm-hmm.
can take small steps. And that's all we're trying to get them to do is take the small step. I'm not trying to say, hey, like we got to stop your foreclosure and then we got to start investing in your 401k and we got to make sure you're a millionaire in the next 5 years. That's not what we're
Yeah.
trying to do. We're just trying to make sure
Yeah.
you can pay your bills. So you and the kids can actually have food on the table. Because
Mm-hmm.
this is like real life. We're not just playing a game. Like these are real people's lives that we're trying, and people that we're trying to impact.
Maybe you can share the story. This one sticks out in my mind too. The couple that you helped, where he was making 140,000 a year and it got knocked down to 40, and he was just so thankful. So you probably know more. That was,
Yeah, that was definitely one of our favorite deals that we've done, last year. And yeah, they lost their income and basically got cut not in half by less than half,
yeah,
and had a beautiful home. They took care of it really well, and um, it was just sad. They just had to come to the realization they weren't going to be able to keep their house. There was no other option to be able to do so, and they decided they needed to sell, and we stopped the auction literally the day before. It
yeah.
was it was it was it was crazy, a crazy situation, and we helped give them some time in the home. We helped them with movers, getting all their stuff to their next place, helped them find their next residence, and gave them the security deposit, first last month's rent, and now they're more stable again. And we actually still talk every once in a while. They texted me like this is maybe like a month or two ago, and they were like, hey, just wanted to say hi, and so I was just pretty cool. I love that part of it.
And he
Um,
was even saying how it was putting it, obviously, but I think he even shared it was putting a stress on his marriage, and everything. And now they
yeah.
can breathe, you know.
What's one kind of framework or question that you could give someone? Because obviously, yes, we want to lean in and have a heart of like servitude. Like we want to serve people really well. We want to try to give them their options. But what about when someone is still stuck in that magical thinking, and they're not willing to look at the option of selling as a real option? Like, what's a framework, or what's like maybe a question that you like to ask those people to try to get them in a frame of like seeing what's actually going to happen, you know?
I like to say, well, let's just play a game for a minute. We've
Mm-hmm.
gone over, the three ways: reinstate, loan modification. You don't want to do bankruptcy. So I know you don't want to sell, but let's just play a game for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to sell, paint me a picture what that would look like. Do you want to stay in the area? Would you want a house? Would you need two, three bedrooms? Do you need a fence for your dog? How much money would you need to feel comfortable so that you could, you know, move on? What would you need in the bank? Are there some bills that you need to pay? What would that? Do you need your help with your car repair? And so, as they tell me, that's a subtle way to get them to start thinking about what it would look like if they sold.
Totally. Yeah. You're getting them to what, like future pace, like to actually see, oh wait, maybe this wouldn't be as bad as what I thought.
Yeah,
Now, there's still some people that when you do that, of course, are going to shut down again. And they're going to be
yeah.
like, I don't want to do that. So, what's maybe like a question that you can ask them to see maybe the negative consequences if they don't do anything about it? How do you dig in that way?
Sometimes I'm just like, you know, if the auction goes through, the bank will literally take everything,
Hmm.
and wouldn't it be better to consider getting you some money in your pocket, giving you some time to move on? Just
Yeah.
just the reality that if this happens, they take everything. You lose everything.
Yeah.
And I don't want that for you. I've seen it happen. I don't want that for you.
Yeah.
Let,
Yeah.
so. And
Totally.
some people won't, and some, a lot of times they will.
Totally. Yeah, and you know, we get paid obviously to solve problems for people, but I think we also get paid to come in as an authority figure, as somebody that can actually be in a position of leadership and help walk them through the hardest time of their life. Not just give them a cash offer, not just say I'll pay your first and last month's rent, right? Not just say, oh, I'm helping you, quote unquote. It's like, but actually helping them is like helping them see their problems, what they really are, what they're doing to them emotionally, and like give them some like certainty in like the most uncertain time of their life, most likely.
Yep.
Like that's what we get paid for, and that's the value that we're providing, right? If you
Yeah.
can't clearly, after a deal's done, if you can't clearly say this is the value I brought to this deal, then I would question how much you're actually like helping people.
True.
So that's one thing, and I guess like I'm trying to think about anything else that I'd like to ask before we wrap up here. I think this has been really good. Um, hmm.
I'm just thinking about lady I'm dealing with now, Diantha. I was able to, just because of
Yeah.
the repetitions and just doing it, able to ask her some hard questions, because I can tell she's still, magical thinking, like, oh, this realtor friend is gonna whatever. And I said, well, if it's a realtor investor friend, we deal with a lot of realtors that are investors as well. And
Yeah.
she was telling, I said, did he give you an idea of what it would cost? Because she wants to. Uh, the ex-husband has enough money to reinstate, but it'll wipe him out. So when people tell you stuff like that, that was on the second call, and don't think you're going to close on the first call. You need to follow up when they're not ready. And when the minute she said that and let down her guard and just told me the truth, like that'll wipe him out. I'm like, interesting. So then where they're being stubborn, I think, a little bit, and I get it. They
Mm-hmm.
want top dollar for the house. So he's going to reinstate it, take all his money. Then how is he going to have money to fix the house to sell it for top dollar? Well, he has a realtor friend talking in his ear, right? So
Yeah.
I don't even know if he'll qualify for the HELOC. That's what they're thinking they're going to do. But it was interesting yesterday when I said, well, if the realtor is an investor, how much has he told you that's going to cost? What would the HELOC loan need to be? Well, he
Mm-hmm.
hasn't said that yet. And I said, that's interesting, because he should be able to tell you that walking through right away, because we
Yeah.
do it. You do it all the time. It might not be exact, but you have an idea.
Sure.
So I think things like that, where you're not being rude, but you're kind of laying it out. And so I'm following up with her to see first if he can get approved for a HELOC,
Mm-hmm.
and we may still end up helping her, being able to buy the house, get him some cash.
Yeah.
But I think it's just being able to really listen and hear those things so that you can intelligently, kindly kind of address their line of thinking.
Totally. Yeah. No, I think you're spot on that, and it's a difficult line to walk sometimes because you don't want to be so pushy that it just sounds like you're just walking over every idea that they've thought was a good idea. So you have to be able to kind of like navigate that a little bit softly, and
Yes.
sometimes you have to be more challenging. And I think we
Yep.
all have our gifts. Like I think personally, I think you're better at challenging people and being I think encouraging them to change their behaviors. I'm I think one of my gifts would be being able to sit with people and like be extremely like soft and like empathetic, and I think
Mhm.
that I struggle with that, to be a little more firm sometimes. And so I think that we can all, and I think you're great at sitting with people too and being empathetic, to be clear, but I think that we all have our gifts is what I'm saying, and what I think we're probably naturally a little bit better at. And so we just have to work to sharpen the other side. Like
Yeah.
just because you're not good at one avenue doesn't mean you can't ever be good at it. You just have to
And
work on it. And
And something you're really good at, this is because I was watching you and working with you so that I can be better on the phone with people, which I realize I lacked and I'm doing better, is I think it comes when you do buy into their story too much. So you have an A to Z process and you buy into their story. So right about, the middle of the alphabet, you sort of drop the ball because you buy their
Mm,
story. And
so true.
you never do. You always know in the best way, okay, there is an objective to this call to help them, and there's a way to do it. So we have to go from A to Z,
Yeah.
and you're just very good at staying on track and still being empathetic. And I'm learning to do that. It's really important. I hope that
Yeah.
makes sense. I know it's hard to
No, yeah,
explain.
not you're basically just saying not to put words in your mouth, but not venturing out too much onto one branch. It's like
Yes.
we're trying to go up the tree, right? We're going up the tree, and if they tell us something here, we don't want to go too far off the ledge. Like, we're
Yes. And
just
I
going to
think in
keep
the beginning, I
coming.
know in the beginning, when you are good with talking and people, which I am,
Yes.
I was not good because I did get off on, oh, you've got dogs and you like gardening, and we'd go
Right.
talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're really good at making a short little statement, acknowledging it, or
Hmm.
sharing a little personal information, like, yeah, my dad plays music too, and or yeah, but then you get right back on track. And
Right.
that's been invaluable for me to learn, because I'd waste a lot of time leaning on my personality to
Hmm.
be friendly with them, and
Yeah.
to like I needed that. And really, we are to be friendly and empathetic, but we are to be professional, meaning if I'm going to help you, I still have to stay on track and keep you on track
Totally.
to help you get there.
Totally. 100%. Because it's like you can be friendly, like you said, but at the end of the day, it's like, do they need a friend more or someone that can solve their problem? Like, and
Exactly.
that's what you got to figure out. And it's like, okay, they need someone to solve their problem more. Great. I'll still be their friend and be friendly. But I may
Yeah.
not come over and watch the Cowboys game with you. It's like probably going to do a different thing, right?
Yeah.
So, last question I would have here for you, Cyndi, and I think some other people would really love to take something from you. Like, if there's like one piece of advice that you could give to someone kind of starting out in the business, it doesn't have to be foreclosures, it doesn't have to be sub two, it doesn't have to be creative finance. Like, what's just even it's a small piece of advice that you would give someone starting out that just wants to kind of get
Well,
their first deal?
I did this, and it's very easy to just consume information, learn, watch YouTube videos, and you don't actually take action. So just figuring out which list you want to work from, picking up the phone and just going for it. And
Yeah.
again, don't do it alone. That would be my recommendation. Even if it's a group that's actively making calls and working, find that. And we have one now,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We have the school community. Yeah. Creative Finance Mastery. And we'd love for anybody watching this to come join us and just like have a
yep.
conversation. Like we have Zoom calls weekly. You can answer. We will answer all of your questions that you have about creative finance or anything related to that. And yeah, we're truly in this business to make a difference, and not only homeowners' lives, but also the way that agents understand creative finance, the way that investors understand it and actually treat homeowners. We want to train people up that can do this business ethically and take care of
Yes.
people. So,
Yes.
anything else you
And
want to
never
add? Or I think this is
never lose
great.
your
So,
sense of humor. As a team, we have the best sense of humor. I
yes.
think it's grown because we genuinely love and respect each other. And I would say I wouldn't get too big too quick either. I mean, Evan's
Mm,
really good at taking it step by step and learning from any mistakes, And so we have a small team, and
mm,
we honestly admire and trust and love each other for real, like we're family. And then that allows that humor to develop. That's just
right.
Bible says laughter's like medicine. And so, when things are tough or stressful, or as they can be for all of us doing this, we just love to laugh every now and then. And I think
We
that's
do.
priceless.
I agree. Cyndi, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, and I'm excited for more people to get to meet you in person and on the Zoom calls, and yeah,
Thanks for
really
having
appreciate you
me.
as always. Absolutely. All right. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. We'll see y'all soon.